I've worked in political parties, I've worked in solidarity movements, but for 22 years, I've worked in the trade union movement. Without wanting to define it, I want to explain to you how we as women experience patriarchy in the trade unions. And we experience pervasive sexism, pervasive sexism that is expressed. I'm going to give some examples of how this is manifested. But the sexism is expressed through male power, through notions of heteronormativity, through male privilege, through male supremacy, and in its worst form, through male bonds, actually. There are bonds and alliances that get formed that we don't get excluded from. You know, in the corporate world, there's a lot written about what they call the, what is it called now? The boys' club, right? How corporate decisions get made by men in powerful, in the unions, they get made at night, in the bedrooms of somebody's room, over a bottle of expensive whiskey these days. You know, they manifest through the attacks on our thoughts. They manifest through words and speech or discourse. They manifest through our spaces, the spaces we occupy or we're allowed to occupy, and they manifest through the attacks on our bodies. You know, the unions are extremely conservative spaces. You know, Bell Hooks has this quote where she says, as women, we are required to be free of thinking. Now this, we're not required to think, that's not our role. This is manifested in the unions in very profound ways, and I'm sure in other organizations. So you wouldn't think this, but there's a very clear sexual division of labor that happens in the unions. And what you find linked to this, I don't know if this is my term, but I've called it, there's a sexualized precariat that has emerged. So if you find, where are you finding the women in the unions? They're all in administrative jobs. So they're largely the administrators, the receptionists. And then there's a few of us who get to be heads of departments, like myself. Prakashni heads the parliamentary office. Refilwe was a spokesperson in a union. That's rare, eh? That's really rare that you get that. So I'm saying this precariat, because I'm calling it a precariat because these are often young women, single mothers, often don't have degrees or haven't had opportunities to study, and are therefore in a very precarious position. So that's one thing that happens. And then those of us who have authority or some level of authority, we are accommodated. We don't get included in the mainstream discussions and decisions, etc. There's spaces where we're useful and we get asked to do things, but we're not part of like the key decisions. Then there's what I'm calling like how they deal with our kind of the discourse, right? They're in control of the discourse. So they set the discourse. They set the discourse and they define the discourse through culture, rituals, policies, etc. And there's what I refer to as the rhetoric and the reality. You know, there's the rhetoric. You can stand on a platform and proclaim the significance and the importance of women's oppression and the importance of resolving the interrelated and antagonistic contradictions of race, class, and gender. But then in your practice, you do something completely to the contrary. You know, one of the most powerful quotes comes from Amilcar Cabral on this. And Amilcar Cabral is often quoted on this, you know. He talks about the greatest struggle for us as revolutionaries is the struggle from within. You know, the struggle to change from within. And this quote is used, but misinterpreted, incredibly so, to the benefit of those who benefit from patriarchy. And then also, there's a lot more. I want to talk a little bit about the sexist language, you know, so, oh, goodness, I can go on about this, but we were talking a little bit about, you know, you get referred to as, have you been referred to as a conference package, huh? You know, you're going away for a weekend workshop. Men talk about, hey, have you got a conference package for the weekend? This is like us. you've got a woman that you're going to be with on the weekend. Sometimes, I get referred to as baby. I just find it incredulous, It's like babes or baby. In NUMSA, one of the resolutions from the Congress is like, we're going to extend the scope of organizing, which means we're going to organize along value change. Comrades have now used this to speak about, they say they're extending the scope of organizing, because they're more women. So it's as crude. I mean, it's not even, it's laughable, actually. But yeah, I mean, I've heard this, right? Imagine, no, comrades, we're extending the scope of organizing. So there's that. So there's a lot around the language, okay? So there's the space. Okay, so this is one that I'd like to explore more and debate about more. In the union, we have a lot of meetings on weekends, mainly because workers don't get time off during the week, so you maximize weekends. But what weekend time, so that's the main reason. So what weekend time does is that it destroys the family, because I'm thinking, so I'll tell you, you have a central committee. There's about 100 people that participate in the central committee. I'm one of 6 women, right, in that central committee. So I'm one of 6 women. And you ask yourself, like, so are the women not there because they're not shop stewards? Yes, of course, so there's that to talk about. But also they're not there because men don't allow them to go to meetings. They're not there because they're doing the laundry. They have to prepare the supper. They have to clean the clothes. So there's all the unpaid labor that doesn't get noticed, and that doesn't, And then I'm wondering, like, all these men, where are your wives? Where are your partners? Where are your girlfriends? The things that are uncomfortable, what I call the complicit silences, both as men and as women. And this is something that I've spoken with my sisters in the union about endlessly, You see things happening, but you keep quiet. And again, why? Why do we keep quiet? Why don't we speak out? So, there's lots of explanations, and we can talk about this at length. And I think, I'm going to quote Pumla. Pumla uses this thing of the fear factory when she talks about gender-based violence and how as women we grow up in this fear factory. I think in the unions, I want to extend that fear factory. There's another fear factory. There's this fear factory of being marginalized, of being given less meaningful work, of being relegated. So the fear factory operates there, not in relation to the violence, but in relation to our silence when we see things happening to our other sisters in the union. And then even men, this is from not my NUMSA days, from my COSATU days. There was a leader, who I shall not name, who used to speak in meetings about, having to sign salaries every month, and how he hated and despised the fact that he had to sign salaries which included garnishes for maintenance. He hated it, but he never spoke out about it. So why not take those men aside and say to them, hey, you made these kids, take responsibility for them. Didn't care. Or he used to bemoan, he had all the statistics, so I don't have them now, about single-parent households and fatherless homes, but never dealt with the fact that the majority of the men in the union were complicit in entrenching this. Male sexual entitlement, which is very powerful because it's so pervasive in the unions. There is this objectification of us as women. They even talk about men. Hey, Pindi, you're getting fat, man. Hey, Pindi, you got nice curves, man. And we were joking about this, but even when we die, they talk about this. This goes with us to our death. I think about the former COSATU first or second deputy president, Secretary Deputy Valitsiboni, when she died. A speech was made about her African body, how they appreciated her curves and the way she carried herself. When did our bodies become the possession and the ownership of these men? To talk about it in that way. And then, of course, there is pervasive sexual harassment, pervasive, that all of us have experienced. at some level or another. I don't want to give degrees to it. Though we've heard of one rape, I'm sure there are many others that we don't hear of. Trade unionists are contributors to this gendered civil war that's going on. So these are the men who stand on platforms and hold up rights and prospects for workers and a better future, yet they entrenching the unacknowledged gender civil war.